happy what's left. Actually, no, happy Saturday. It is now 12:06 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which means we are on April 15th. Whew. Welcome back because for some of you, you just saw me a few hours ago with our Star Trek show. And then for the rest of you who are not into Star Trek that are just filing in, this is the Midnight Express. This is a real quickie that we'll do for about maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. Add a little bit extra energy left, and we also have a long afternoon. Not only will I be running the store, but we are going to be doing our overnighter with plenty of topics that we bounced around. We'll be talking some more Star Trek tomorrow. We'll be talking some wrestling tomorrow. I'll have another independent. Hopefully, if I can, if the person's schedule works out, I'll have another independent filmmaker from somewhere. Um, Next week we are going to actually, for the first time, have a guest on the show that is actually going to come in to the into the center and do an interview. It's a filmmaker from Minnesota who will be out here for vacation, so we won't have to do the whole StreamYard type of thing, but we'll actually able to sit across from the person and do an interview. So that will be the actual first time I've ever, been able to do it that way. So that'll be a new experience. Hey, what's up, Integrity? Long time no see, man. I hope you've been okay. So what's been in the news today? There's a new Flash TV drop. I saw that one with Michael Keaton flying or dropping out of the Batwing. I need to get a special link. I don't want to play it and get taken offline, but I'm pretty sure I can get the link for it since we'll be promoting that movie. Let's see. StreamYard is still doing that delay. So let me explain to you guys what I mean when I come in and there's a delay. What happens when you launch a stream? You guys usually get a not an email, but you'll get a chime or something on YouTube to let you know, hey, I'm going live or I've scheduled a show. Lately, it's been getting later and later in the show. One of the days last week, I was 11 minutes into the show before people got notifications. Some people didn't get the notification at all and just happened to be on YouTube and saw I was on and enjoyed the show, in the last minute or so. But yeah, it's weird. And you'll see people coming in clumps and stuff. Like there'll be nobody on my screen, and then all of a sudden there'll be like 15. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. How you doing, Jacob? All right. Did you see the Flash trailer from a day ago? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They're doing all the right things to get this movie to make as much as possible. I really think they have a chance here. Like I said, I'm not guaranteeing that it will crack a billion but the Super Bowl spot was great. It was the first, the great, first full trailer. The TV spot I saw, and then on the 25th they're doing another TV spot. Uh, that'll come out just before CinemaCon. The only fear that I have is since it's going to be airing at CinemaCon, is that it's going to get leaked out, or people are going to get, they're going to spoil the ending or something like that, and that may help it depending on how good it is, or that might hurt it for people who go to the movies to be surprised. I would have loved to have been one of those to see it at CinemaCon, but it's like I said, just only because I think it's going to get ruined for me, but I'll still report on it. I'll still promote it. We'll still get to see it with our screenings before the general public goes, but that's only a few days. It's really not hard to keep people out of this situation, like that. But with CinemaCon, it's different. Like I said, with Top Gun, Top Gun Maverick's not a comic book movie. Comic book movies get leaked, so hopefully, the people who are doing CinemaCon and Warner Brothers keep a tight cap on that one. So all right, William, what are your thoughts about a Baywatch remake is in the works? I'm not the biggest fan of remakes, but there's not much to Baywatch to really. They've done it before. They've done updates before, and really, it's a bunch of hot guys and gals on the beach rescuing. There's like one or two rescues a week, and it's people going through angst in bathing suits. That show is a DILF and a MILF magnet show. That's how Momoa got his, one of his very first roles, and obviously David Hasselhoff is, so I don't know if remaking that or rebooting that's going to actually hurt it like it would hurt things because I don't think Baywatch has has anything that is reliant on its previous incarnation. So who knows? How you doing, Aaron? Yeah, yeah, and that's aggravating me. You know, I mean, I know I could. It's not like I can schedule it. When I schedule it, it goes out. It's scheduled. It's supposed to give you another notification, but when you go live, it's supposed to give you the notification as I go live. That way, you can set your timer. I know, you don't always have to be notified if you're a member of the channel. I mean, and you can hit the notify me, and it'll let you know. But it always before it lets you know immediately as I went live. Lately, like I said, it's just been going up and down, and it's really screwing things up because I get complaints from people saying, "Hey, I missed your show. I didn't even get a notification," and I'm like, "I'm live now," and so yeah, it's. I don't know if that's a StreamYard thing. I know when or it's not a computer thing because it's happened to me twice tonight or in the last 6 hours. The Star Trek show. I'm getting emails from people who said they wanted to discuss it live, but they didn't get the notification. That sucks, man. I hope they can fix that. How you doing, Jeebus? William Jacob McKinsey, Variety confirms that the Batman sequel is going into production this year. Director Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson are set to get in production of Batman Part 2 later this year. Um, the sooner the better. I need a Batman movie sooner than that, but I'll wait. Um, I can't wait to see the script. I wanted to. If they're set to go into production, that means he has a script. So we should be hearing real soon who the enemy is. I've heard a lot of rumors. Clayface, Quarter Vowels. Clayface would be weird because it doesn't seem like the kind of villain that he might do. And if he does it, it's not going to be like the Clayface that we're talking about in the comics, this big glob of brown goo. Just like if Mr. Freeze, if he does Mr. Freeze, it's not going to be some fool with a fishbowl over his head with blue skin. It's going to be somebody. He's going to do it like the Riddler. He kind of Zodiac killed the Riddler. So I'm interested to see. I like Matt Reeves Batman. I don't want it as my connected universe Batman. I prefer Ben Affleck, but this solo Batman story is a cool one. It's just like they do in the comics. Batman is written differently when he is in, and around the Justice League. He's written a certain way when he's written in his own comic books and when he's in his own Black Label stuff. So, the more Batman, the better. I'm interested to see who the villain is and who they get for the villain and how that portrayal of the villain is. So, yeah, I wish they would have gone in protection sooner, but hey, because what the last one was, what, 2021, 2022. So it'll be what, 3 years in between. It's not too bad. It's not great either. William thought on Super Mario Brothers movies was past. Like we said last night, I think it's we'll know this weekend that's drop. I don't think it's going to have a huge drop though, because like I said, it's just that it just seems like the people that I know have seen it. It's a fun time and it's quick. It's 90 minutes, so you can get a lot of screenings in, and it just appears to be one of those movies that you're not just going to see once. So I don't think it's going to have a big drop from week 1 to week 2. And if it holds around 55 to 60, if it's a 50 to 60% drop, that's actually pretty decent. That means it has legs. It's going to make a little bit of money up until something else comes out. Right now, I don't see anything on the horizon that would take away from its demographic. So it could be $1 billion movie. Could be. All right, integrity of the Flash at the billion. In my opinion, it's the first DC film I'm really looking forward to seeing in theaters since BVS. That being said, I thought the news trailer was poorly put together. It wasn't really a trailer though. That's a TV spot. If it were a trailer, I would agree with you. But that's just a regular TV spot. Gives you a couple of different quarters of it. It's like what, maybe 30 seconds, something like that. But that's just a TV spot. That's just a reminder. The trailer is coming up here in what, about 10 days. Maybe, yeah, I do agree with you. It's the first movie that I'm looking forward to, in that manner. I've seen them all, but it's the first available movie that they've had since if you don't count Justice League, and I really don't, it's the first event level movie that AdSense, BVS. I'm surprised Twister made as much money as it did, but Twister's made 500 million when it came out in '96, and for that, like John Caffey was saying this morning, that era, 500 million is a mega blockbuster. So disaster movies do well. So now StreamYard is freezing on me. Okay, come on. Yeah, okay. This is going to be a special night for StreamYard. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Where was I? StreamYard just kicked me out for no good reason. I think there's going to be an issue. This was a show that, by the way, guys, I was committed to dialing back on my cursing. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while on both our streams, and whenever I'm online, to not drop as many f bombs and s bombs as I usually do. And this was the stream that I was going to do my best not to do that. And I'm being challenged right now with StreamYard. So let's see. Let's try this again. All right. Edgar Jones is a former storm chaser who, after surviving a disastrous tornado encounter, now works a desk job. However, he will be soon forced to, you guessed it, go out and breathe. It's like Jaws. It's like Jaws, except with tornadoes. So, William, thought on a potential new movie and TV series for Legally Blonde. Um, I have no interest in that. I'm sorry. Legally Blonde. That's like a Reese Witherspoon comedy type of thing. I never saw any of the regional or original ones. I think there were two of them. So I wish them luck. Okay, now thought on a new movie and TV series for Stargate are being actively discussed at Amazon. A movie being considered first. Okay, we're at that today. Got to be real careful with this one. A lot of what Stargate was tied to the people that played those roles for a long, long time. Stargate AC-1 was on the air for what, 10 years? Then you had Stargate Atlantis, where Momoa got one of his big starts. I don't know exactly how they're going to do this. I mean, the premise is there. I don't know. I don't know if it'll work. To be honest with you. I mean, I love Stargate. I will watch it. I don't know if they're doing a restarting or continuation. Are the people that Amanda Tapping, Richard Dean Anderson, are those people still going to be in the periphery? Or are we starting brand new? If they're starting brand new, I don't. I know Stargate has a history, but I don't know if it has enough history and a draw to be able to go forward without the connective tissue that was Stargate, that made Stargate what it was. It'll be interesting to see it. I'm short. I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this stream without cursing. Yeah, like I said, the TV spot. Tell her to look at the Super Bowl trailer, and then tell her to look at the one on the 25th. That'll probably help her out. Thought of the new RoboCop series. RoboCop, I don't I think they should do it. RoboCop was cool back in the 80s when the technology was considered to be advanced. Hell, we got mechanical dogs that can do as much as a RoboCop movie did when it first came out. So. Let's see. Yeah, RoboCop. Like I said, they're gonna have to do something to make it special. It's cyborgs in the '80s when Terminator and RoboCop came out. Cyborgs was a new thing. It's been 30 some odd years, and the new movie was sort of good. It wasn't great, but at the same time, it's like, how are you going to make RoboCop relevant in the technological age we live in now? I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's good. It's going to be uphill battle. Yeah, I was lagging before I went out. I could tell I was about to go out because StreamYard's little controls that make up StreamYard start blinking. So yeah, I tried to get my sentence out before I went up. Oh wow, way to make me feel old. Jeez. Let's see. Yes, it's definitely StreamYard. It definitely those fools. Oh, by the way, tonight's episode of the Midnight Express is brought to you by Sister Kim's Kitchen. Look at that poor boy sandwich. So yeah, as soon as I get that done, shrimp and fish, catfish and shrimp. We'll tear it up. But yeah, it's the only reason why I'm over here doing the show because I don't have an area to eat over where the new studio is going to be. So. All right, with Flash being a DC multiverse movie, it isn't even better suited to lead into Elseworlds news. Any main connect? I agree with you. I agree with you. Now there's a lot of other YouTubers who have their heads in their ass and telling you that it's gonna be too confusing and why would he do something that competes with themselves? Once again, once fanboy logic creeps into where the money sits, you got to put those earplugs in. If the Flash does well, and they have committed to James Gunn's way of doing things, be greedy, be greedy, ride that Flash train as much as you can, and get what you can of it, and at the same time get that cash out of your new universe. Combine them and let them help each other. Right now, and this is what a lot of the fanboy YouTube pundit logic just doesn't understand is that the alternate concurrent universes is in DC Comics' DNA. It has literally been branded in DC for 30 years now. Elseworlds, the first Elseworlds, I believe, came out in the early 90s. And Elseworlds is a brand. People know what that is. A multiverse is something DC created as well, but Marvel's hijacked that. But Elseworlds is something that is exclusive to DC Comics. They have been telling concurrent storylines in different worlds for 80 years now. It is literally what DC does. So when people say, well, they should just reboot everything and it's going to be too confusing to have too many of these, if your customer, and I'm not going to cuss, is an effing idiot, then that customer will be confused. If your storyteller is a dummy, that customer will be confused. I know for a fact that most fans aren't dummies. And there's some pretty damn good storytellers out there. So when you eliminate those two factors, the confusion excuse is stupid. If the Flash makes good money, wring as much cash as you can get out of that situation. And at the same time, have your other thing going on. We're not stupid. I'm kind of insulted that other YouTubers and Twitter heads think fans are that stupid. We may not always say the right things and act in the right and appropriate ways all the time, but stupid is not a category I would put us in. And you would have to be pretty stupid not to figure out an Elseworlds universe and a main universe, especially if the storyteller does what they're paid lots of money to do and tells you and explains you to the story. And then not only explains it to you, brands it. Brands it in a way that you no longer have to really, figure it out anymore. It's laid out there for you. All right. So, when we're doing these things and when we're talking about possible situations that that DC could do and get all the money instead of getting some money. Right now, DC Films in the last 7 years has settled in to accepting, one over the other when they don't have to. They can do both. And every time you see somebody bring up anything from Elseworlds, by the time an Elseworlds movie comes out, you should already be branded with this. All right, right there. You should be branded with all this. See this logo? This logo right here should be ingrained into your brain starting yesterday, starting a year ago, as soon as possible. You right now, what you do, if you're worried about confusion, and once again, unless your customer is a dummy, that's not going to be the case. And unless your storyteller is a dummy, it's not going to be the case. However, even with neither one of them being stupid or dumb, it's still a branding issue. It's still a recognition issue. By the time that the Flash came out, or by the time you decide where you're going, this logo should be ingrained as much in everybody's head as the HBO logo is, or the DC logo. This should be. It's like all those houses of Harry Potter. All you Potterheads know every one of those damn houses, right? This is the type of thing that needs to happen with DC because it is inevitable that you are going to have to tell a story through Elseworlds, either the pre-existing ones that you have now, or ones like whatever continues or could continue from the Flash, if you decide to go that separate route. But for another reason, you're going to get those Steven Spielberg types. You're going to get those Martin Scorsese types. You're going to get those Denis Villeneuve types who want to make a superhero movie under your banner, but don't want to get caught up with an overarching narrative that's being controlled by someone else. You're going to need an You're going to need an Elseworlds. You are going to need a place to take that person. Otherwise, you're going to lose that person. You're going to lose that Spielberg. You're going to lose that, whoever. And I'm just throwing out names, but high-end directors, Nolan, whoever it is. If you don't have a place for them to go to tell a singular story that's not connected to them, to the main universe, you could lose those guys to other companies. So right now, there should be somebody in the marketing department that is working on this before we even need it. We should be training your brain to what Elseworlds is before we even have a movie. That way, when it comes out, you're so familiar with the brand, it's not a big deal. You may have to try the no F-bomb. Yeah, so far so good. Let's knock on wood that we stay up. All right. Let's see. Here you go. How you doing, Daniel Martin? Yes, well, I keep forgetting I'm a horrible marketer. Please like and subscribe to Poindexter Lounge, if you're watching there. Please like and subscribe and share the channel too to other people. Someday I will get up to a decent number of views on the Sci-Fi Centers network, but here you go, youtube.com/at the Sci-Fi Center. That's my page, and we're broadcasting on both right now. All right, so let's see. So yeah, that's what I would do with Elseworlds. To me, like I said, because number one, I deal with customers every day, and I deal with people with these storylines every day, and I also deal with the general public who is not a comic book fan. These people aren't stupid. These people know that there's different situations. Now, there have been situations where the whole Ben Affleck situation, because they never publicized it and they never let people know. They just kind of like, okay, Ben Affleck stopped doing Batman, and then the next Batman you see is some other guy. If you aren't in the zeitgeist for a while, I had people asking me where's Ben Affleck, because they never made a big announcement. That's how crappy DC's marketing has been. If You could have probably pushed that up another 50 million with people knowing, but at the same time, that's the kind of stuff you can't do anymore. The whole Cavill situation is kind of like letting it drift away for 5 years. DC needs to be the exact opposite of what they've been. They need to let you know. You need to be tired of seeing and hearing from DC. That's how much information that they should be putting out. And whenever we see a production or a movie or a trailer, we see the studio and whoever paid for it and all that. When you're doing an Elseworlds story, Elseworlds comes DC turns into Elseworlds. And that way the viewer knows that this is not the mainline universe. And with Elseworlds, you don't need a bunch of connected storylines. Kingdom Come was not a connected storyline. Gotham by Gaslight, Superman Red Sun, these are all one-shot storylines that you can allow filmmakers to take and do without having to worry about being under the umbrella of an entire universe. We need that universe because that's what's going to generate the revenue. But at the same time, the standalones and things, things that don't line up that you've invested in should go to Elseworlds. And when I say whatever the Flash continues on as far as an Elseworlds, if they want to do it that way, I personally don't need the Snyder story to last forever. I just think you should use Elseworlds to resolve it and keep it in reserve. And that's any of the storylines you have now. Because like I said, you are going to have thoughts and ideas that do not fit with the mainline universe that James Gunn is running. That might be the situation for James Gunn. James Gunn may come up with something that he thinks is a cool idea because that guy's brain works differently than ours. All right. But he will know that, hey, this is great, but this doesn't quite fit with where I'm going, what I'm doing here. I got Elseworlds. All right. Elseworlds should be a strong enough brand cinematically and through all the platforms as it is in the comics. And if you read DC Comics, Elseworlds has given us some of the greatest stories that they've put out in the last 30 years. Like I said, Kingdom Come, one of the all-time great miniseries of all time. All right, let's see. I think so. It's nothing that's connected. He hasn't been in anywhere, so I think he's gonna connect him. I don't know how, but it just makes sense that he would. Well, and why didn't WB release Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition to theaters? It would at least make them 100 million more. All right, B, I don't think it would have. I know a lot of people say that. I think Batman versus Superman, in my opinion, was an $871 million movie regardless. And one of the things you got to realize, because once you add that ultimate cut, once you add that 30 minutes, you actually, the most you can, for every 30 minutes, you almost you decrease your time on the screen as far as how many times a movie theater can play you. And so if you have a 2 hour, unless it's like Avengers Endgame, if you had like 20 years of hype, it's people would sit through that. And that was a 3 hour, 20-minute movies because when Avengers Endgame was playing, it was on every screen. So there wasn't a shortage of screen and money to be made. With BVS, you're talking about the second movie in, so you weren't shutting down all the screens for that. And if you would have had a 3 hour plus movie at that particular time for that, their concern was that they would not have been able to get as many screenings of it, and theaters would have cut back. Because that half hour makes a huge difference between at the time where it would have fit in. And so if you're doing that, you would have been decreasing your screenings. And so that extra 100 million, you're not really making that because you're getting less screenings. You see what I'm saying? It's just not, unless Baby S was at the level to where it's Avengers Endgame with all that buildup to where every screen in because when I went to go see like No Way Home, most of the screens were for No Way Home. You had a couple of other different ones, and even then, later on, they got when we went to do our screening when we were in our theater. All the Cineplex, all it had was Spider-Man: No Way Home, and eventually, and same thing with Endgame. Endgame here, especially in Vegas, where you had 24 hours to be able to go to see a movie. Sometimes they all had Endgame on it. So you weren't going to lose out with this. Yeah, that's why people tell it would have made $1 billion if they were released. So now I don't think there's any circumstances, to be honest with you, and I will take this to the grave, that BVS was going to make that much more money. It actually, in my opinion, when I did my when we were betting and projecting on what it would make, I thought Batman versus Superman was going to be a 768 million to maybe 820 million dollar movie. I thought, as long as it increased beyond, because it was a sequel to Man of Steel. So if your sequel goes up that high a percentage, I thought that would have been fine. It ended up making more, and then you have the absolute bulls, and I respect some of these people that Batman versus Superman should have made $1 billion when no other Superman movie had come close to $1 billion. The Superman movie that they had just released with Brandon and Ralph failed so badly that they canceled future plans for that. It didn't even make 400 million. Barely. And they explicitly said we thought that movie should have been at least $500 million, and it wasn't. So just throwing a red S on something didn't guarantee you $1 billion. If you didn't have Heath Ledger's all-time legendary top 10 performance in a film, as Academy Award-winning performance as a villain, you were one Heath Ledger away from The Dark Knight not drawing anywhere near what it did. And The Dark Knight Rises piggybacked on that, and that wasn't a very good movie. So if you take Heath Ledger out of the equation and you take Batman Begins, it's 400 some odd million dollars, and you give it a modest increase, maybe another 600 million, you're probably at about 700 or 800 million by the end of that franchise. That's being generous. But we look at it in hindsight because Heath Ledger was there. He did drive those two movies over. Even the movie he wasn't in, it was a piggyback effect. But if you take that iconic performance out of there, you're probably struggling with not struggling, but a franchise that averages around maybe 600-700 million total. I mean, averaging, with the highest one probably being the third one. So those movies wouldn't have made $1 billion. Your last Superman movie didn't make $1 billion. You are starting over with two characters that the man babies hold dearly like a teddy bear, and no one else can ever do interpretations of those characters. You're having to deal with that. And people are like, well, Marvel set the landscape for this movie to make $1 billion. Marvel set the landscape for them to make $1 billion. Marvel never had to deal with someone saying, well, that's not my Iron Man, because you only had one. All right, the only major big screen Captain America has been Chris Evans. All right, most of these characters that you saw in the MCU, it was their first time that you saw them in a major production. So you had everybody on your side. Whereas DC had 80 years of man babies. Why can't we bring back Christopher Reeve? This will never be. We should just do it like they did in the 80s. We should bring back, and they tried that and failed. Superman Returns was literally that. And that movie failed. So we had all those people to go up against while you're trying to make $1 billion off a movie that you should have never had expected to. So yeah, I thought, smart people, had smart people been running Warner Brothers at that time, they would have looked at 668 million, 678 million for Man of Steel, and a huge bump up in their next movie, and they would have kept their trajectory going. Yeah, make some adjustments if you think you have to. But the wholesale destruction of your plan without another plan, that's how stupid the people who were running Warner Brothers at the time were. They disrupted a plan that they had no replacement for. And right now, as we sit here on April 15th, that is what we're paying for. That is why James Gunn has a job in DC right now. That is why none of the people that were in existence in the last 5 to 7 years, Warner Brothers and DC Films, are with the company anymore. All right. If you don't have a better plan B than the plan A you're yanking out, you don't yank plan A. Just that simple. And that's in anything. That's in the army. That's in movies. That's in anything. If you're not smart enough to come up with something better than the thing you're about to knock over, you need to sit your ass down and let that plan go forward. And if they'd have done that, we would have been in a different world today. But oh well. True, William. WB never pushed their talent or names associated with DC. Maybe Matt Reeves delayed, but terrible marketing. Yeah, terrible marketing all the way around. Terrible marketing and terrible game plan. But, hopefully that changes. I still think one more story with Raw Superman and Elseworlds is something I want to see happen. Yeah, you could do it in an Elseworlds. And I think in time, people have grown a little bit more appreciation of Brandon Routh. He wasn't a bad Superman. It was just an awful movie. But like I said, they showed him as Kingdom Come Superman. I wish they would go do a Fathom event with MOS, BVS, UE, and UE, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's what you're getting at SnyderCon if you could if you could afford to get in there, um, just for one day over the weekend. I really think that's what Zach's doing in LA, but um, I might do that, something like that here. I don't know if I'll do a Fathom event, but I would do something like here, just in preparation for the Flash if we start marketing it, because the Flash is connected to these movies. So yeah, I would take it too. I mean, Ari Aster's new movie, Boo, I'm afraid is right for 3 hour mark. Audiences are getting more and more used to long. It's not whether the audience is used to the runtime, Daniel. It's whether the theater wants to have it eat up that much runtime. I say the longer the movie, the less screening time you can get for that movie and other movies, and you kind of decrease your revenue because you have one movie taking up an inordinate amount of time where you could possibly fit another screening in. And even if it's just missing one screening, if you can pack, another screening with a different movie or that same movie, that's the difference between breaking even or not. Remember, theaters don't make as much money off of the movies as a lot of people thought. They make their money off of the concessions and everything else. So you're kind of decreasing the kind of money that a theater can make if you have a movie that's too long. Now, if it's a movie like Endgame or something like that, to where you're going to sell out every screening, you can get away with it because you can just have that exclusively as what you're showing. All right, William, I strongly disagree. I understand the screenings, but cutting out 30 minutes created no less than 8 major plot holes, issues. Every Bat film was getting longer till BVS. Not that long. Um, that cut, and like I said, they could have put that cut in, and I don't think it would have financially hurt them, but it wouldn't have given them another 100 million. Nah. Even if the audience, like I said, the studios would not have gone for it at that time. All right, they didn't know the kind of machine that they had in the DC, the DC movies. They weren't, they're looking to them. It's it's too long. They're not going to be able to put more screenings as they want to. I mean, and the studio's not going to care about every other Bat movie. They're gonna look at the math. How many screenings can I get in a 14-hour period that I have from opening to closing? And as far as the plot point. And here's the thing, though. Warner Brothers could have done a re-release in the theaters, and they never did. Once they made their initial money. See, once they made their initial money, they could have released the unabridged version within weeks later, and I think that and under limited screenings. But I don't people, and like I said, us fans think that that would have mattered a lot. But if they weren't going to give it extra screenings, and if you weren't going to give it the extra screenings, then you were going to have less screenings of it, which cuts into the 100 million that you think you would have made. I hope I'm making sense there. Kind of confused myself. Even I would have seen BVS more if they had told us 72 hours before BVS was released that the director's cut would not be in theaters. I was immediately disappointed and spent less money because of that. But the majority of the population that went and saw it wasn't going to be that deep into it like you and me. They're going to see Batman and Superman off that name recognition alone. And there was enough in that movie. Like I said, it made $871 million. Let's look at the how long was the exact set? Batman versus Superman. Because like I said, that matters. That may not matter to fans, but that matters if you're trying to keep a theater open with the um, margins that the theaters have. All right, so running time was 152 minutes. Let's see. I'm just reading up on the and I still, by the way, the people at that BVS was a failure. I don't want to use the F word because I'm trying to be better. I can't believe that when you open your brain machine that there's something there. The film grossed 166 million in the United States and Canada in its opening weekend, the eighth highest opening of all time, ahead of The Dark Knight Rises at 106. The movie, man, it's just so sad. Yeah, so and it opened on 4,020. So it opened on a decent amount of screens. So you'll be asking the theaters to show less screenings. They're just not going to do that at that time. Not for that movie where it was. If it had been like Endgame, well into that money making machine, you could probably get them to do that, but not where it was. How you doing, Tehran? A lot of the latest MCU fans that didn't fare so well, they capped them off at just over 2 hours runtime, and you could tell they were heavily edited. Oh yeah. You hear the Marvel directors saying that there's a lot of stuff that got cut out of their movies because like I said, in order to make them profitable, the studios, not studios, but the cinema, the movie theaters, 2 hours is what they want. They can get the maximum around. Hell, if you give them a 90, that's what we were just talking about. How Wild Mario Brothers could be a success. It's a 90-minute runtime, from what I hear. That means they can show that a lot more than a lot of other movies. That's why it's going to be able to get its legs. That's more money for the cinema. All right. And the cinemas, they're razor thin margins. That's why the stuff's so expensive when you go there to eat. $12 nachos, man. $7 soda, $6, because that's the experience you're going for, because that's where they make their money. So you would be decreasing not only the screenings revenue, the ticket revenue, you would be decreasing the traffic that comes along with those screenings. So yeah, I understand what you mean, integrity. I agree with you in the fan sense, but I can understand why they wouldn't allow that in the business sense. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just a practical one. All right. Elseworlds also seems like such a good way for DC to level the playing field. Either Marvels, especially since the multiverse saga seems to be less expansive than what the Flash could be setting up. Yeah, and I'll tell you the difference between what Marvel's doing with the multiverse and what DC has always done with either Elseworlds or their own multiverse. Because DC is so old and they constantly had to recycle themselves and their characters while keeping the lineage going, you've always had things like JSA and JLA existing in separate universes and things like that. You've always had that. All right. It is a way of life, a way of storytelling for DC. With Marvel, it is a plot of device. It's an event. All right. With DC, as long as I've been alive, hell, as long as my dad's been alive, there has been alternate storytelling all throughout DC's history. It is in their DNA to do this. And even when you did Crisis, the biggest mistake of the century, even when you did Crisis, you immediately, 4 years later, began undoing what Crisis was supposed to solve by Elseworlds. Then you did Zero. So you have all these things. So not only has DC been doing it since the beginning, even when they told themselves they didn't want to do it anymore, they immediately undid that. So Elseworlds, and especially Elseworlds, like I said, 30 years we've been doing Elseworlds. It's a brand that's out there. It works. It works. It's like the Vertigo brand. I mean, it became when you saw these things, you knew what type of storyline you were getting. So when you see that Elseworlds logo and you see it pop on the screen, you're already fastening your seatbelt for something far different than your mainline universe gives you. Your mind starts working now. I think they should do it, man. Yeah, Thor and Love and Thunder sucked. I really, that movie was offensively bad. BVS is 15 minutes shorter than Dark Knight Rises. Every Bat film for the first, okay, every Bat film for the first 20 got 15 minutes long. You cannot compare those though. The Dark Knight Rises was coming off of a generational phenomenal hit in the Dark Knight. You had a $1 billion movie that already had two in the hole already with the two previous movies. You had Heath Ledger winning an Academy Award for his all-time great performance, and that hype around that movie because he passed away. They knew they could get away with more screenings, and it sucks because The Dark Knight Rises wasn't, in my opinion, a very good movie. I think the Nolan trilogies personally are overrated, but everybody loves them, and that's fine. But you were coming off of that. You were not coming off of that with BVS. You were coming off a good earning, but you weren't coming off something that justified you possibly losing out on screening revenue and traffic like that because you would have had to screen it less. You got to look at it from their point of view in 2016 as if you're a movie theater. And to this day, even before COVID, movie theaters were struggling because the margins are profit margins are razor thin. And that's what they do. Showing movies is what they do. You know, you're asking them to what they do for money and how they make their money. You're asking them to do it less. And that's just nobody's going to approve of that off of what Man of Steel was. Now, you know, if they would have kept their trajectory and not screwed things up at Warner Brothers, eventually your movies you would have probably averaged in the 850 to 900 million. Enough frequency like that will get them to say, you know what, this is a lot of money. Let's go ahead and give them that screening because we're not drifting back. We're not losing. We have a demand for this. It's just it's dollars and cents, man. I mean, I'm sorry it's that way because I agree with you, but it is what it is on that end. Roughly begins 2 hours and 15 minutes. Dark Knight 2 hours and 25. Dark Knight Rises 2 hours and 45. BVS two. Okay, but here you go. Batman Begins with 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's well within the safe because once you reach 2 hours and 30 minutes is that red zone that people start shitting or defecating in their pants over when it comes to losing screening times. All right, Dark Knight was 2 hours and 25 minutes. Okay, right there. That's still within the wheelhouse. Now, Dark Knight Rises is 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's 15 minutes more than they really want to, and that sort of adds up. But you were coming off the Dark Knight, which was $1 billion phenomenon, and they knew that they could get that money by doing what they did. They didn't have to shorten the screening. They knew they were going to get the demand for those screenings. They knew they were going to sell out the house with that. It just is. So at 2 hours and 45 minutes, you didn't really have to add another screening for The Dark Knight Rises, to make its money. They did, and that's how it made more money. But you knew what you were getting at that point. You came off a $1 billion movie at a popular franchise after Heath Ledger. You knew what you were getting. I mean, the same thing with Endgame. They could play Endgame 24 hours and they're not going to lose because you know why? Those other movies that are going to be showing, they don't have to leverage those other movies. They're not thinking, okay, if I show BVS again, am I cutting out another blockbuster movie that might be making money the next week or whatever? With Dark Knight Rises, they don't have to worry about that. Other movies other studios were moving theirs out of the way. If you notice, when you see date changes and all that, a lot of them will move out of the way for that, so that the cinemas can do what they need to do. BVS wasn't at that point yet. That was only step 2 of a brand new franchise. They did not have that kind of faith yet. So, by the way, thoughts on the Marvels trailer? I thought it looks about as good as the first one, which is Entertainment. It looked kind of entertaining, but I just wasn't entertained in that storyline. Captain Marvel to me has been a disappointment. I love Brie Larson. I think she's doing what they're asking of her, but I just wasn't intrigued. I liked the show, but I didn't love the show. And then the whole WandaVision, the Monica Rambeau, I just wasn't into that one at all. I wasn't into her as a comic book character either. So, but they're not making it for me. So, you're forgetting the general audience for riding the wave of the Nolan trilogy, similar to our Avengers point. No, it was the first Batman film. Okay, here's the thing and this is the psychology of this that even these knucklehead executives did not get. The executives made the same mistake that you're sort of making here right now. All right, so I'm going to read this back. You're forgetting the general audience for riding the wave of the Nolan trilogy. There was no wave from the Nolan trilogy. You had people who liked the Nolan trilogy that was their Batman. It's the same thing with Superman, Christopher Reeve. You weren't going to ride the wave of something that distinct and then automatically jump blindly into something else that, by all appearances, even from the trailers and everything else, was a very, very different Batman than you just watched. There's almost zero comparisons to the Batman that Ben Affleck portrayed and the Batman that Christian Bale portrayed. That wasn't much of a wave as it was a sea that had some waves in it, and then now we're looking at this new thing. The Nolan Batman is what they fell in love with, and to this day, people keep beating over Ben Affleck's Batman with Nolan's Batman. So there wasn't, in my opinion, there wasn't that kind of wave that just said, "Oh, we're ready for more Batman" at that time. Not the mentality just wasn't there. It's gotten better. Right now, we have people that are more open-minded to different Batman. That's why I don't think that there'd be a problem with doing multiple, even simultaneously. But if Robert Pattinson's Batman would have gotten released back in 2013 to 2016, there would have been hell to pay. All right, because people weren't open-minded to a different Batman other than the Nolan trilogy, and what they did, especially the last two. The first Nolan film didn't didn't do all that great. I mean, it did good, but it's $400 million. I mean, if you look at so you look at let's see. All right, so The Dark Knight, or Batman Begins. All right, 2005. So we're talking about an entirely different era. All right, so Batman Begins was wow. Out of a budget of $150 million, it made $373 million. Now, if that were to happen today, you wouldn't have gotten The Dark Knight because its its production budget, without even talking about ad budget, was 150, and it made 373. So the mentality, the acceptance was already built in there. So you really you really can't compare it. And by the time, like I said, take Heath Ledger's iconic performance out of that second movie, you don't have that one making that kind of money, and you don't have the other one making that kind of money. So there wasn't really a wave. It was the right place, right time, right performance. But you didn't automatically have a revolving door from Nolan's Batman into Ben Affleck's Batman because they were completely different things. And there are people that I know that haven't seen the Batman yet because it's just not the type of Batman that appeals to them. Will they warm up to it years down the line? Maybe, probably, but I would look for the Batman to make in the same range that Batman 2 making the same range as the other one, unless you have some kind of iconic performance that pushes it over the load. But no, you didn't. I didn't forget that. It just wasn't there. I promoted all those movies. I promoted them all from Superman Returns all the way up through all of Snyder's movies, and you just those people that enjoyed the Nolan movies enjoyed those movies, and they weren't immediately embracing anything but those movies. It's the same thing with Superman, even though Superman's situation is far more ridiculous because that Superman, by the time Superman Returns came, it was 26 years later in an entirely different era where Christopher Reeve's Superman just didn't fit. So I understand what you're saying, but it just wasn't happening that way. That we weren't there mentally to be doing that. They weren't walking from Nolan's. They weren't jumping from Nolan's trilogy into Ben Affleck. I wish that was the case, but remember all that resistance we got? That's not my Batman. We should just what's the Zack Snyder guy? We should just get Nolan to do it again. I mean, and that's the kind of simple mindedness that we had then. So hindsight, yeah, but at the time, no, that wasn't happening. So I disagree. I've discussed BVS plenty. Yeah, we've discussed it. Shit, almost cussed again. It's almost gonna have that's 8-year anniversary, but yeah, but none of those reasons, in my opinion, played a factor in BVS. I thought BVS did fine. I thought BVS did with the trajectory of those movies were, and if they hadn't panicked like a bunch of pussies instead of running a company like they should have been, I think you would have eventually got to where you wanted to get with DC Films, and then you would have been able to wrap it up and something else. But hey, here we are. I'm just thinking WBDC shot themselves in the foot so many times. It's just about impossible to start another shared universe by 2025. MCU is just completed their 10-year arc. Elseworlds, Wolf Elra. Yeah, like I said, I wish James Gunn all the way, and I think James Gunn can tell a great story. I have all the faith in the world that he can give me something that is going to be high quality. I just don't know where the audience is going to be in 2025. DC, before he even got there, has done everything that they could to just make it so easy for me to dismiss the product. And now you're not going to have a major motion picture product for 2 years. So where's the momentum coming from? Who knows? Like I said, we'll have to wait 2 years from now to see how it all comes together. I think that they've wasted a lot of good wills by the incomplete nature of how they've handled themselves since 2017. So, and I don't think James Gunn, as great as he is and as capable as he is, sometimes you inherit a situation that's just lead weight. It's not his fault that the company and the studio has been mismanaged for nearly 7 years. That's not his fault, but that is what it is. The general audience is like they put DC in the back of their minds. Now they're willing to come out for an event movie, but anything else, it's gonna. Like I said, I don't know what Blue Beetle's gonna do. I think Blue Beetle has some built-in demographic advantages, but at the same time, here we are with another character that the vast majority of the general public does not know or care about. So we have that going for it. So I gave James Gunn 40% odds, which are high odds considering what he's inheriting. But here's the thing: depending on how they handle the Flash, James Gunn could take a look at the Flash. Flash makes $1 billion. He starts re-engineering his thing, strengthening his hand, but at the same time, not discarding that. There's a lot of things that can change, but yeah, it's just really, no matter what walk of life, no matter what business you're in, it is really, really hard to outrun the shadow of bad management, no matter how good you are. You don't always get a second and third chance with the general audience. And that's basically what you're asking for in James Gunn. You're asking for second and third chance from an audience that's already been exhausted and pretty much left underwhelmed and empty-handed. So, but hey, if anybody can do it, he can. Right, but BVS is coming off of the same $2 billion phenomenon. No, okay. Batman is the first title. Batman is first in title for a reason, but not the same universe. I think you're under. No, I am not under. It pulled integrity. It pulled 871 million. And trust me when I tell you that Batman being in that film, in my opinion, was the majority of that pull. It did. All I'm saying is it did what it was going to do. It did what it was going to do, and it's not bad. 871 million is not bad. Now, those jackasses probably should have not spent 250 to 300 million on it. Use some stagecraft, use some other things. You got a movie that had a lot of scenes that mirrored another one. 300 million is a lot for that movie. I don't know where all that went, but even still, it was profitable. And if it wasn't what the studio wanted, then the studio was in charge of that budget. I mean, 200 to 300 million on that movie, even back in 2016, that's just, you're playing with fire right now. Unless you're Avatar or you're going to print that kind of money, then you generally want to keep it at 150 to 180 with Superman in it and VFX. Even still, the VFX for Man of Steel should have been right around the same, numbers as BVS. They weren't released that far apart. So did they need to spend 300 million on that movie? That's on them. But the pull for Batman is what got that movie 807. That's a win. All right. There were fools that couldn't see the win, but that's a win. I don't think that releasing the ultimate cut would have met that much more money in the face of what they would be losing by less screenings. And I don't think the theaters would have been on board with it at that particular time. They were on board with it with these other movies because you had $1 billion movie that had just been released as its last one. So it's tough to know, but talking to theater people and theater management, getting the most screenings has always been the most important thing to them. Like I said, it increases the ticket, that they only get 30 some odd percent of, but it increases the snacks and the sodas and all that overpriced stuff that they got. It increases the traffic for that because more screenings, more traffic for that. So I don't know, man. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. We can move on though. I'm not giving you our time for the record. No, and you're not the first person to bring that up. By the way, you're not the first person to bring that up. A lot of people bring that up, and having seen, and I agree 100% with you. Um, you know that the ultimate cut is the better put, no doubt. But I also understand from the business and screening point of view of where they were at with that why they would have never done it and why it didn't make is much different than I still think you had 871 million should have been a party, but Fools found a way to screw that up. I haven't dropped an F bomb yet. I'm doing well. We're an hour and 2 minutes in, 15 minutes over our natural time, and I haven't dropped an F bomb yet. Wave me. Look at Batman on film before Nolan. After Nolan, the franchise was in a much better place. It was, if you look at just dollars and cents. You would think that wave and that momentum would be there. It's more Batman. But people back then, remember, had a mental lock on something. They connected to Nolan's Batman on a level that did not allow them to necessarily connect immediately. Now, eventually it happened. I talk to these same people all the time now that are like, wow, that movie's really good. I wish I'd have seen that in theater. There's a better respect for Man of Steel now that was not there back in the day. So, but like I said, you needed that time for it to resonate, and it wasn't there. The attitudes towards these movies were not there back in when they were being released. All right, I'm trying to derail the show here. It's all good, but seeing Batman Begins box office is lower because no one cared about Batman. Um, uh, People cared about Batman until Batman and Robin, because Batman Forever did a lot of money, and it's considered a great movie. That's one of my favorite Batman movies. Period. All right, the execs definitely thought there was something there. Originally, they wanted Nolan to direct a Superman movie, but he still executives. They believed that the grounded real approach. Yeah, the execs didn't start changing their mind until they started looking at the Marvel car. Right? I can always compare it to you're driving down a road, a perilous road. The only way you're going to keep your car on that road and not wreck everything is by keeping your eyes on your vehicle, your controls, your steering wheel, your pedals, everything, what's going on in your car and the road ahead of you. Not Marvel's car. You can't drive your car safely while you got your head and your neck in the lap of the guy that or gal that's in the next car. You're going to crash, and that's what happened to them. Marvel did what worked for Marvel, and congratulations to them. DC needed to do what worked for them, and you had too many dumbass pundits that were like, "Oh, Marvel's doing this, and Marvel set the blueprint. This is the way you got to do it." Marvel set the blueprint from them because they had a guy in their company that had been with their company and been around just about every project that they did, and he knew that product, he knew that audience, he knew those people that he was working with. All right. All DC had to do in their own way is exact. That's the only thing you should copy from Marvel is the faith in structure. All right. And they didn't have any faith in the people. They didn't have enough knowledge, especially once AT&T took over. They didn't have enough care and regard for the IPs that they had. And they just weren't willing to put in the time and the patience that it took. It took time for the MCU to become what it was. Iron Man barely cracked 400 million. That's the first one. All right. So and it was I think it was a 3 or 4 years before they made their first billion. And now you're having the times that they have now where they're struggling to make 500 million in some of these movies. So it takes time, but it also takes you focusing on your thing. DC is DC. The DNA of DC Comics will always forever be different than that of Marvel. The genesis of what created DC Comics in general and the stories that come from them come from a different place that Marvel is not coming from. The two companies are separated by 20 years. All right, Marvel, DC invented the superhero. They invented the alternate superhero, alternate universe. They invented the superhero group. All right, there's in the times that DC came up through, that bleeds through today. And if you cannot recognize the differences and distinguishing things that are from those two companies, you don't need to be running that company. And that's what you had from 2013 all the way up till now. You had people who viewed every comic book property through the Marvel lens, and that lens only fit the Marvel head. All right, you basically crapped in your own pool because you tried to make it someone else's, jacuzzi. Thanks science for Star Trek. We need something to hold us over until DC gets their stuff together. They need to win soon. Like I said, I think how you doing, Brad Rich? I'm not familiar with you as well. I usually if it's one of the names I just see, I want to welcome you to the show. I agree 100%. I think Flash is going to be that win. Now, what they do with Flash is going to determine how big a win. Are you going to take the momentum if you get from Flash and the connections that people make in those characters, and you can get as much of that green stuff out of it as possible, or are you going to go ahead with this other thing that may or may not net you anything? It's going to be an interesting question. I don't have a right answer, but hey, we're not banning anybody yet. I didn't ban you. Or did you disappear? Nah, you're still in the chat. I would never do that. Nah, we're fine. I'm going through the questions in order now. No, I'm only answering that question in depth integrity because it's a question that it is brought up, and I feel every now and then it needs to be addressed. So no, you're not giving me a hard time at all. All right, let's see. Integrity, you're right after putting him. Nah, I've never banned him. Like I said, he's voicing an opinion that I hear a lot, and if you on the surface of it, I could see where you guys are going with that until you start talking to people who run theaters. You start hearing them talk about you hear things from NATO, which is a North American theater organization. You hear them voicing their concerns. You hear them at meetings and everything else. You hear when the movie does poorly and it ends up being a really really good movie that a lot of people gave high praise. A lot of people look at runtimes. One of the biggest things that will kill your movie's revenue is runtime. You know, that's one of the things that hurt Blade Runner 2049. A lot of people like that movie. Most of the people who saw that movie gave it high praise, but not a lot of people. Personally, were going to commit to 2 hours and 45 minutes. But further, it was the studio's like that's a long ass movie for a 35-year-old sequel. So, hey Bill, how you doing? How's Amazon World going? I miss your streams from your little van. Just some more of those. Oh, okay. No, because hey, the way StreamYards is acting up tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if people started disappearing. Hell, it kicked me out twice, and it didn't give most of the people notifications that the show was even on. So I'm not going to say anything that's impossible with StreamYards tonight. All right, so let me make sure I got everything. But yeah, but Star Trek has been really good lately, man. I can't wait to this next show. I cannot wait to this finale. I want to see who that fleshy face lady, thing was. I mean, for those of you watching Picard, I just think we're in a really, 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 really good time to be a Star Trek fan after a lot of infighting and a lot of years where we didn't get anything. And I'm glad to see, and I know I make fun of old Trek fan because I think old Trek fans choked the life out of Star Trek in the mid 2000s. It's good to see at least them, even they won't say it out loud, that's fine, but they're enjoying some of this stuff. They're enjoying Strange New Worlds. They're definitely enjoying Star Trek Picard. And no one's going to admit it out loud, apparently, but someone was watching Discovery enough to give it the numbers it got. And it got really good numbers for a brand new streaming service. Remember, Picard and Strange New Worlds are coming out years after Paramount Plus and CBS All Access or whatever the hell it was has been established for a few years. Paramount Plus, Star Trek Discovery launched that network, just like Voyager launched UPN. So it was in a much tougher spot. And if you look at, there are internal numbers that they've released for the Star Trek Discovery, and they were strong. And unlike most like situations like where the Suicide Squad, you end up getting Peacemaker because Hamada greenlit Peacemaker before he knew what kind of numbers the Suicide Squad, and they ended up losing a lot of money. That's an abnormal situation. Generally, you do not launch that type of spinoff, especially with the price of a Star Trek show, unless you could see in the numbers that has been in the fan base. Discovery did that. People love to crap on Discovery. They love to crap on Discovery, but the numbers are the proof. I don't even need to defend Discovery anymore. I used to get defensive. I'm like, hey, Trek is Trek, because of the gatekeepers. I don't need to do that anymore because its numbers are so strong. I got Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And you do not have Star Trek Picard without Discovery. You just don't have it. So if everybody's enjoying Star Trek Picard, the only way that a streamer would have given any of these shows a shot or greenlit the cartoon or Prodigy or this new Star Trek yet is if the preceding shows had been drawing for them. Like I said, which Peacemaker was different because not only you have HBO as a platform to justify that. Paramount Plus, these things weren't going on Showtime. This is just on streaming. So I am lucky. I feel lucky to be a Star Trek fan. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh yeah. I thought and I didn't know if he had really disappeared or not because I'm like, ah, damn it, StreamYards. What are y'all talking about? Oh, well, hell, Val, this was a topic for a while. We were on BVS, and Integrity brought up a good point, which a lot of people have brought up, is that if they had released the Ultimate Edition in theaters, it might have made more than it did. I am skeptical of that because it would have been a longer cut that would have meant less screenings for the cinemas. And I think BBS, it's 871 million is epic. I think that was a win. They spent too much money to make it, and they learned that lesson. But I think people look at BBS's box office as a loss, and all the executives who thought that way all got chased from the company for various reasons. All right, so now we're looking at movies like Black Adam and Ant-Man, all these other movies that aren't making the kind of money that people think they should be printing. But the Flash, I think, will change that. How you doing, Larry? I'm doing okay. Hi again. Seems like some of y'all just getting off. Bill, hi. I was asking William about BVS and the UE being in theaters. Yep. You know what? Integrity is funny because even when you're not here, they say it's inevitable. There could be streams you missing and missing. They have that on there, which I think is hilarious. All right, let's see. Clinton Honey on 420 new Beavis and Butthead. Yes, yeah, because that's what I was clamoring for. And of course, it's going to be released on April 20th. Oh, by the way, April 20th, April 21st is going to be like a huge call-in day. So if you have anybody that smokes weed on any level, recreational or otherwise, you might as well get some replacements for April 21st because they will not be at work. All right, guys. I think Bell, since you came in last, I know you're still there. You got any questions for me before because I think I answered everybody else's. All right. Honestly, I think it's freaking awesome that people are saying when I'm like, yeah, it is kind of cool. Yeah, it is kind of cool. All right, I think I'm gonna go eat this shrimp and fish poor boy that I've been staring at. I'm gonna throw it in the microwave, and yeah, it'll be t-shirts. You're gonna be t-shirts. People walking around with the word inevitable on it, and nobody's gonna know what it means except us. So, but and if it indeed happens in some way, shape, or form, I don't care if it's sock puppets. Integrity is gonna deserve his credit. If we get claymation, you know what? I know it's not a popular take. I think the Lego movies are stupid. They're not my thing. You're not stupid for loving them, but I think I tried to sit. I'm like, this is stupid. Tell you what, if you were to resolve the Dark Side arc with Legos, I'm there, man. Like I told you before, sock puppets. I'm there for any type of resolution. I am a completist. I think if you are going to sell somebody something based on something, you needed to complete that thing before you even, because otherwise your credibility is at stake. Right now, especially with a 2-year gap, even if you like what James Gunn puts out, what are your guarantee? There's no guarantee that we're not going to run into the same situation. And there was never a guarantee, but with DC's track record of pulling the ground from under people and not backing their filmmakers and meddling, it's left. It's not only what it's done, it's screwed things up with the nerds like us, but what it has done is its output. How many movies has DC put out and during since 2017? Their output sucks. Not only does the output suck, you when you did put out movies, you were giving me um, the Weasel. You were giving me Polka Dot Man. You were giving me the Huntress. Not knocking those characters at all, but if you're going to have a sparse output like that, you need to be putting out the nuclear bombs. You need to be putting out Superman. You need to be putting out Batman. You need to be putting out Green Lantern. You need to be putting out things like that. You cannot give us as few movies as DC Films gave us during that time period and have basically none of them be the A-listers. That's a problem. That's a problem. All right, guys, I'm hungry. I'm not as tired, but I'm going to go watch some wrestling. And I'm going to go eat some food. And we will see each other real um we'll see each other real soon here, like in like less than 24 hours for our overnighter. So hey, thank you, Integrity. I'm glad you have fun here. Like I said, I just want to create a space where we can have these kind of silly conversations and mess around with each other. Like I said, same conversations that I would have at the Sci-Fi Center if you were standing at the counter. So all right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of this internet YouTube experience, and I will see you tomorrow for the overnighter.